Hello, dear friends. My name is Daniel Kamarov. Welcome to my YouTube channel under the rubric of Keeping the Faith. Um, Today, my guest is Anton Dinerstein, analyst, researcher, social scientist, communication scholar. He has a PhD from University of Massachusetts Amherst in communication, majoring in culture, language, and social interaction. Anton is also a poet. His books of poems recently published. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting.
I heard some people define themselves as homo confusus or homo perplexus. How can we preserve ourselves? How can we learn to rely on our own ethical principles rather than external algorithms? What can help us in the search for our own path, religion, creativity, or the beauty of live interaction with others?
Well, this is an interesting question. Depends, I guess, on the perspective, and for every person it will be different, but and also in any situation it can be different because we change through life in different moments. We never are the same, and this is something about identity. It's always not always the same as well because like one day uh, you have one knowledge, one experience, then you grow, meet other people, get in different situations, in different environments, and you change. The world changes, so you need to adapt. I guess keeping the balance is a good way to basically surviving in this world and living through it as a human being, is critically thinking about the world and trying to question it as well, not to judge it, try to understand it and explore. I guess this is how I try to do it, but maybe other people can do it in different ways. That's why there are so many people with different meanings and opinions, different cultures and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would also say that it depends on the situation and the type of experience. That's a very good point that with every experience we change, and so the most important thing can be different. Um, in one of my recent interviews with theologian Christopher Jonasson from Austria, he said that he comes from a secular family. He was choosing between Catholicism and Judaism and ultimately became Catholic. If you don't mind, I'd also like to ask you a few questions about your self-identity or identities. Your last name is Jewish. Have you had any problems with your Jewish last name?
Yeah, one of the main problems was not with the Jewish name itself, but with the fact that it always gets misspelled or mistyped or or I don't know, like mispronounced as well. Like for example, when I was in the United States, some of the people pronounce it like Dinerstein, like I'm a part of the diner or something. I was like, okay, well, but when you have people with whom you can talk directly, you can correct them. But in many situations, like in school or somewhere, where especially where it's like handwritten, like journals or something with like students in the school, somebody writes this name with a not really clear handwriting, and then the teacher reads it, and then it gets misspelled like Dipperstein or Dimmerstein or Dinfstein, depending on the way it is written and spelled. The same with emails, like sometimes people duplicate the N. Like when I was advising for one of the master's students for master's thesis, my name was misspelled like with double N because the professor was from Germany, and probably this is more likely like a German name would sound like. But okay, you cannot do anything with this. So this is one of the things which are like a magical part that this name always gets misspelled, but that's not a problem for me. But I had also other issues with this, like in school especially, because I was growing in Belarus. It's a post-Soviet country with specific environment when specifically during the times like at the beginning of 90s, middle of 90s, people just Soviet Union just collapsed, right? And then many people didn't see anything outside from this country, right? So didn't were not exposed to different cultures, different perspectives. And then specifically children sometimes can be cruel, right? So they try to bully you, try to make jokes out of your name. But then yeah, so it happens, but then you need to stand up and fight sometimes to show people that, okay, this is not the way you should treat me. And then you just give one example and people start respect you somehow. I don't know, not always happens, but I had a couple of issues where I had to basically stand up to say, okay, you shouldn't make jokes out of my name because this is my name. I'm not making jokes of your name. So let's be respectful to each other. And this worked. So I didn't have any issues after that. But in childhood, yeah, there were some issues.
Yeah, I guess the post-Soviet era in Belarus and all of the post-Soviet countries was very rough and also maybe a crisis of self-identity was there for many people. But I think that it is very important to stand up and fight for your identity, for your last name. Um, yes. By the way, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Is that how you pronounce it?
Usually in English, I pronounce it Dinerstein.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but but some people can pronounce it Dinerstein because, like in American English, specifically like Frankenstein, right? Like all these Jewish surnames, they have Steen in the end.
Right,
So it's also fine. I don't have any problems with people misspelling it or pronouncing it differently because depending on where people come from, could be different ways of pronouncing the same words, specifically the same word forms. And this is a
right,
word form, and there is no problem with that.
right. So, according to halacha, Jewish religious law, a person is considered Jewish if their mother is Jewish or they have converted to Judaism. As far as I know, your father is Jewish and your mother isn't. Have you had any difficulties with this?
I could say a few, maybe, but so one of the difficulties was not about my father or mother being from specific ethnicity or like religious or cultural origin. It was about, again, this post-Soviet context where you live in. And then in this situation where people see a Jewish last name, they automatically consider you a Jewish person. And there are a lot of prejudice and stereotypes about Jews, especially like anecdotes and jokes and all this stuff. And idiomatic sayings like when something bad happens, then this is probably because of Jews. Uh, so I had to deal with these things. Uh, but another problem was for actually Jewish people, especially religious Jewish people, because they do not consider me as a proper Jew. But for the state of Israel, for example, I would be considered like not a Jew, but maybe Israeli, right? It's a different maybe identity, but still. And then sometimes I was thinking, okay, this person has a Jewish mother like another person, has a completely Russian name like Ivanov, looks completely like a Slavic person, never got punched, never got joken upon, never got any problems with this. He never struggled with his Jewish origin, but considered as a proper Jew. For me, I had problems with it. I struggled through this. Uh, the older I become, the more I look not like a Slavic person, especially when I get a tan from the sunlight and do not shave. So yeah, and then my last name is Jewish, and it's a for Belarus it was more or less like unique name because I guess like mostly the relatives have this name. No other Jews in Belarus have that are not relatives have this name. And then I was thinking, okay, so I was always considered as a Jewish person, joking upon had these issues because of my Jewish identity, like ethnic identity, not religious one. But still, for you, somehow I'm not a Jew. I'm thinking something is not okay with this because I know where it is coming from, like from historical situations, like especially I guess with Romans maybe or somewhere when you always know who the child is because if the mother if a mother gave birth to this child, you know if the mother is Jewish, then the child is Jewish definitely, and it doesn't matter who the father is. But in the modern world, I guess these things could be considered in a different way because people have different experiences, and like if you consider like 20th century when Hitler was judging people by their ethnicity, not by their religious affiliation or by who their mother is. And basically, you get problems just because you have something related to Jewish origin, not just because you're Jew by halacha. And yeah, that's, I guess, were some issues, but I got kind of, I do not. this is the problem anymore, but at some point when I was trying to go like to Israel, did Aliyah, so encountered these issues, and this was surprising that this is still an issue actually, because this could be reformed or reviewed somehow. Because like the world is changing, why couldn't religious laws change as well with this world to be basically modern on the same leg with this world? Because in this situation, it looks like they're a bit outdated, these norms, from my perspective specifically.
Yeah, I think that's a very um, important point you raise about um, how you had experience with um, I guess domestic anti-Semitism is the term because of your Jewish last name. Um, and even though some Jews might not consider you Jewish enough or whatever. So I think that's a very important point. Um, you mentioned your religious identity. Uh, so could you tell me a little bit more? What is your religious identity? What is your ethnic identity?
Yeah, so in terms of religious identity, this is a tricky question because I'm not sure if I consider myself a part of any religion as like formal religion, right? But still, in some way, like I have like faith in people, basically, that people have potential to be good. They have potential to do some good stuff in this world, and some of them do, some of them don't. But still, probably this is some kind of analytical optic that maybe some prejudice from my part, because this is what I think about people, but not necessarily they are this way. And the same with any religion, like if you divide it by religion as like rituals and norms, that is one part, but another part is about faith and believing in something. So basically, sometimes beliefs can actually uh, frame you in a certain way on the way you look at the world. And in my case, I tend to look at people as good beings, but this probably might not be the fact or true. And because as a scientist, I understand that this is probably some kind of framing from my side. But still, this belief helps me to navigate the world in the way I do and try to basically talk to people, negotiate, understand them, maybe learn from them and teach them as well in advance. So this kind of reciprocal relationship with individuals. This is something maybe partly a religious part, but I'm not sure. And
So a
then
sort
as
of a faith in the people
I guess
and
so, yeah. And
belief
then
in life interaction, I guess. Would you say that?
could be, yeah, I guess that's it. Like believing in the world that the world has potential to be a good place for everyone and that people can make it a good place. This is some kind of, I think it's a partially religious logic as well. And then in terms of other identities, yeah, like ethnic identity. I was born in Belarus. My father is Jewish, but then like in English, there is no division between Jewish by ethnicity and Jewish by religion. It's the same word for both of this. But in Russian, you can say different words. And in terms of like my ethnic identity, okay, part of it is Jewish, part of it is Belarusian, and some other like I guess also have some Tatar blood as well, because in Belarus many people have blood from like ethnic origins from Tatars from Middle Ages still. Uh, so I'm not sure, like in terms of ethnicity, I'm just a kind of mixed origin. And then I'm not sure if there's cultural ethnicity, sorry, cultural identity. Probably I grew most of my life, spent most of my life in Belarus, but then I traveled to other countries as well. I used to live in the United States. I used to live in Israel, even in Russia, in Spain. Now I live in Poland. When I was a kid, I used to live in Lithuania, where my grandparents lived at that point. I visited Ukraine. I visited many European countries as a kid and when I was older as well. So yeah, and I guess this cultural background has mixed together, and now I cannot truly say that I belong to one unique culture or one unique like kind of cultural identity, you see, because culture, when you use culture as something that refers to a place, it's not completely accurate because culture is something that happens when we create meaning. Basically, culture is reflected in meaning and in what people do. And that's why this kind of interpersonal communication and relationships is a good place to learn about culture. And especially when you live in a specific place, you learn the way people consider and understand the world from that perspective. You understand why they do certain things. Then you go to another place, you see different perspective and different actions. Then you try to compare them, analyze them, understand why people do this. And then you understand, okay, there are so many cultures and people all over the place here in this world. So it's not possible to even create a category that will universally describe any group. And that's why I'm trying not to judge by groups, but try to understand what meaning people create. And that's why it's difficult also to say that you have a certain identity, because identity in itself is something not stable. It's like fluctuating, liquid, basically. And it's also situational. Like today here, you're an interviewer. I am the one who is being interviewed. These are identities which are situational in this particular context. Then like there are professional identities. You can be a doctor or a teacher or somewhere else. You can be there are some kind of recreational basically identities. You have a hobby, you go to a gym or you play football with others, and then you have other identity there, and they are layered one on another. So any person has like multiple identities which are constantly changing and constantly in this flux and dynamics. So that's identity is really tricky. And also it can be self-ascribed when you talk about yourself, but also it can be other ascribed when others describe you. And they not always match. And most likely they will not match never because everybody has their own perspective of anyone else. So that's why speaking of identity actually is really tricky and difficult.
You also write texts, including poetic ones in Russian and Belarusian. I'd like to congratulate you on your recent publication of your new book of poetry.
Thank you.
Uh, Let me read some excerpts from a few of your poems translated from Russian into English. So there are three parts, I believe, and they're all from different po poetry. So our viewers know. All right, the first one. The word is a hope for finding a way for coming together to something, a way for finding a foundation for a common existence. Second one. A flight from Tel Aviv to Tehran. Maybe someday this flight will become civilian, and instead of making uranium rich, they will make friends out of each, as it should have been. The third one. 8 candles and one, burning quietly by the window, shining on close ones, those of kin, separating the darkness from them. Whether Old Testament or New, the most important thing is a new dawn, a new thing for different people, which is a path from enemies to friends. I like these poems. They don't offer ready-made answers, but rather well-posed questions. Do you believe that dialogue and negotiations can resolve well-known and long-standing conflicts, such as the standoff between Iran and Israel?
Yeah, I guess it is possible. It is always possible to find common ground with people. But this involves a lot of input from everybody, like, from both sides, from many sides. If it's a multi-party conflict, then each of them must not only try to negotiate and basically tell others what they think and what the others want to do, but also to make inner work to learn from others, to listen. That's so one of the important things is basically listen to what others say in order to understand what they mean from their own perspective. And if you listen to others and evaluate them not from upfront categories that you have already, like especially when you have negative attitude towards somebody, you will have prejudice, most likely. And then this prejudice will basically preclude you from trying to consider a person from like a blank page, basically, like learning from them, allowing them to tell you who they really are. And this is basically a first step. And then many negotiations fail because people do not want to listen to others. And I guess if you learn to listen, learn to learn about others, learn to learn from them and respect others, it could lead to basically dialogues being capable of resolving conflicts. But this also requires us to make work on ourselves, to learn how to respect others and be eager to actually negotiate. Because if the person is not eager to talk to you, it's not possible to talk. Then and then conflicts go to this kind of violent stages because when somebody is prejudiced toward you, do not want to listen and to talk to you, it is not possible to convince anybody in anything, and the person will not be listening to you. But if the person respects you, then they will be listening. So one of other things is to learn somehow to achieve this mutual respect, and this is also really difficult.
I have raised the point of mutual respect and mutual understanding um, quite a few times in my previous interviews, and I think that mutual respect and not judging the person or the group of people you're trying to have dialogue with before the dialogue can and rely more on interaction is key perhaps to dialogue and something that is missing a lot in the dialogue nowadays. Um, that being said, I have a feeling that intensity of rhetoric and hate speech in various political conflicts, political, cultural, religious, often prevents us from moving towards productive dialogue, developing its goals, methods, and etiquette, so that we can move on from conflict to peaceful coexistence. What principles and values do you think are best for guiding communication between representatives of different countries, cultures, religions? Returning to the term of confused people or homo perplexes that I mentioned at the beginning, how do you decide for yourself? Should you seek inner peace and happiness, pray more in the hope that God will help you and guide you, or proactively search for meaning and your own path in today's complex world? Do you think it's worth trying all of the paths?
Yeah, so I guess I'll try to start with these principles of dialogue. I already mentioned some of them, but so so I guess like one of the important things is first to learn about people whom you intend to talk to know some background, to understand them. And this is some part of it which was part of my scholarly work, sorry. Because like the methods and approaches I used is ethnography of communication, cultural discourse analysis, which are specifically focused on understanding uh, the logic of people in their own terms. So it analyzes communication, basically what people say in different situations, how they name themselves, things around them, and it allows you to basically find these kind of key cultural terms that describe specific cultural contexts or specific cultural logic. And if you operate these terms, you can construct basically an image of a person in their own terms. And then if you understand, then you can analyze them to understand why these terms are important for them and how they're important, how they construct their world in general. So this involves a lot of preparatory work before you start a dialogue, basically. So you need to understand. And then when you understand this logic, understand why people say certain things or do certain things, you can uh, compare them with other things you know and see. Sometimes you'll find commonalities, sometimes you'll see differences. And basically, on these intersection points where you see common things, dialogue is possible, especially with individual, like face-to-face dialogues or with small groups. Uh, but then also, if you learn about somebody's culture and understand it, it doesn't mean that this cultural logic is ideal or is good. Sometimes it's not good. Like there were many ethnographers who researched cannibal tribes and they were understanding these tribes. And there is also this basically line where you need to understand that here I'm understanding them as an analyst, and here I'm the person who tries to behave the same way in Arabic because I see logic in their actions. So you should to divide yourself, like basically distinguish a scholar from a person who is communicating, and then you can critically assess this as well. And on these intersections, where you see the match, you can find connection, but then on the disconnections, you can try to convince the person. Maybe they will learn from you, or maybe listen their explanation and learn some more context to maybe basically scale up your logic or optics, analytical optics on them. And then basically after that, when you like learn from them, listen to people, uh, when they see that you're basically talking to them as respectful ones, they treat them as normal human beings, they will also start trusting you as well. And then in this situation, you can basically establish rapport, basically some kind of uh, mutual connection, mutual trust, which can become the basis for maybe, I don't know, like in the terms of conflict, some treaties or some kind of agreements or some kind of pacts or something that could uh, maybe outline mutual norms of behavior from both sides. And then if people respect each other from both sides, they will abide for them. Usually people are good beings because like if you go on the street and see what people do, they try to live in this world, do the best they can. Usually they don't want to harm anybody. But sometimes there are situations when there are conflicts and most people are rational, I guess, like they have capability of being rational. And then if you show them that you're not emotionally loaded with negative prejudice toward them, they will not be defending, they will start opening just bit after a bit. And this is a long process. It's a really long and hard process with a lot of details, which must be considered, with a lot of effort that must be input like from both sides. So dialogue is a good way to resolve conflicts, but it's a complicated one and complex one. But it can work. Uh, Depends on the person. Uh, so about either is like inner peace or uh, I guess
Happiness. Yeah.
trusting into God or some supernatural or omnipotent beings, or just proactively trying to basically live in this world and explore it and do something with this world yourself. So I guess uh, all three ways have their logic and they not necessarily exclude one each other. It's like identities. They can be layered. Depends on the situation, on the context, on the moment, and specific moment in life. Because, like, you need to have inner peace to navigate through the life and plan it, proactively do something, control some parts of it which you can control. But sometimes you cannot control things, and there are situations which are out of your control. In these situations, you have no much choice basically. You either try to do whatever you did before, or I guess you could try to reach some potential beings that could control and that you think that they want to make good to this world. And sometimes it helps people to calm, basically, like a psychological tool. Because if you have things out of your control, you could either go into panic or just start reaching this inner peace. And I guess religious practice in some part of it or some part of it can help people reach this inner peace. The same as proactivity in life, the same as uh, doing something. So basically, I guess these three things are interconnected, depending on the person. You could have more of one of them, less of the other, but this quantity can change with life. And I guess there is nothing bad if you operate all three of them. They're all useful in some way.
I think, yeah, I definitely agree. And they don't conflict with one another. So people can definitely have uh, all of those paths and try to work with all of those paths. Um, each of my interviews with the religious leaders, scientists, and public figures, I tell a Jewish joke, uh, or in this case, two. Uh, so here's a new old Jewish joke. An American journalist working in Jerusalem, not far from the Western Wall, and often she sees an old Jewish man praying vigorously against the stones. Curiously, the journalist meets that man and introduces herself. She asks, "How long have you been coming to the wall, and what exactly are you praying for?" The old man explains that he has prayed for world peace and human goodwill every day for 25 years. Then the amazed journalist asks, "How that feels?" The man explains, like I'm talking to a wall.
Nice one. Yeah.
Another Jewish joke, uh, a major natural disaster is heading straight for the city. The Dalai Lama pleads with humanity to follow Buddhist teachings to find nirvana. The Pope issues a message urging people to accept Jesus before it's too late. The chief rabbi of Jerusalem goes on television and says, "My people, we have 3 days to learn how to live underwater." Um, so I have a traditional question on my YouTube channel that I ask not only my religious interviewees and also secular ones. If you could ask the creator or God one question, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say like, dude, why did you do this for? What was the logic, the purpose of creating all this thing? Could you explain it to me? And did you achieve it or not, basically?
So, question of why?
Yeah, why? What's the point?
Interesting. That's great. Thank you so much for the interview and for the possibility of learning from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and for letting me answer your questions.
It, thank you so much, and I think and congratulations again on the new book.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and dear viewers, thank you for watching my channel. Please react to the podcast, like, repost. All reactions are very welcome. See you soon on the podcast, Keeping the Faith.